100,000 displaced people are living in Pokot camp near Bangui airport. Forced out of their homes by the violence that is rife in the city, the security they find here is only relative. On January 2nd, shooting at the airport led to the death of 2 children. That day, MSF, the only medical organisation in the camp, treated 40 wounded. But the endemic insecurity compelled MSF to cut back its activities for several days. When they returned to the camp, the teams launched a campaign to vaccinate 68,000 children against measles. At the clinic, 500 people attend for consultations daily.
We're doing our best, but we're overwhelmed. We can't manage on our own. We've got to have more help. Where is everyone? I don't get it. We're right here next to the airport. It's not like they don't know. Everyone knows they're here. This is the capital city.
Another team is working at Bangui's community hospital. They arrived in September only to see the situation rapidly deteriorate at the beginning of December.
We were expecting a dozen or so patients a day. On the 5th of December, we received 120 wounded, another 80 the following day, 60 the next. 30 casualties on average, then it would calm down for a few days before erupting again. It was like that throughout the month of December. The beginning of January is looking calmer, but we can't be sure of anything.
Patients arrive here with machete and stab wounds, sometimes even wounds from torture. MSF calls on all parties to end violence against civilians, patients and medical personnel in Central African Republic. Here we are 50 kilometres from the town Bor, where the army is trying to regain control. Bor has been in rebel hands since the end of December. The civilian population has fled. Most of the displaced are women and children. Forced to leave at a moment's notice, they have few personal belongings. Here in a Wariel camp, shelters and hygiene facilities are all too few.
We are still under the trees, as you have seen other people. So we just live under the tree, no houses. And then many people, they are sick here, diarrhea and vomiting. So, and you know what, in a place where people are congested, there is no latrines, so people, they could just go around the bush and then from there, they spread the disease.
The poor living conditions and lack of access to clean water and food all contribute to the risk of spread of disease. In addition to the 10 programmes it routinely runs in the country, MSF has sent emergency teams to Wariel, Juba and Malakal to enable the delivery of healthcare to tens of thousands of people, despite the current instability and shortage of drugs and fuel. The teams in Wariel not only provide medical treatment, but also organise distributions of clean water and food. They are also launching a measles vaccination campaign. The teams confirm that the situation is critical. The fighting means that part of the population is deprived of medical care, a population that was extremely vulnerable even before the conflict. Reconstruction is underway in the islands affected by the typhoon. Despite the unprecedented magnitude of the disaster, the authorities swiftly implemented a response system. But there remains a shortage of medical care, especially emergency and hospital treatment. While consultations at Tacloban's Bethany Hospital mainly involve infected wounds and chronic illness, many women go to the hospital for pregnancy-related complications.
They are very worried about where they will deliver. Food is probably difficult, and most of them have been displaced from their homes, lost their possessions. Surprisingly, all of them are already thinking about what they have to have ready and prepared for the baby, so they're very resilient, I think.
The death of loved ones, the sight of corpses in the streets, the loss of their homes. Many survivors are in need of help to cope with the trauma. MSF is planning to provide psychological counselling over several months, for children in particular. As the provision of primary healthcare has improved in recent weeks, MSF has decided to suspend those of its activities that are no longer required.
Public services are being restored incredibly fast. We hope they'll be up and running in a few months.
MSF's objective now is to help with the reconstruction effort, and more particularly, rehabilitating health facilities. An example is Birawen Hospital, which was badly damaged during the typhoon. In the meantime, the medical teams continue to ensure that the population's medical needs are met. Dagahali is one of Dadaab's camps. Set up 22 years ago, it hosts Somalis who have fled from the civil war that continues to devastate their country. The November agreement lays out the practical and legal terms for their voluntary return, a return that many don't even want to hear about.
Given the current situation in Somalia, I don't want to return. Despite the difficulties here in Dagahali refugee camp, I'd rather stay here than go back to Somalia.
The MSF team providing healthcare to refugees in Dagahali bear witness to the humanitarian emergency here. While discussions on the return of refugees to Somalia may be a positive step, they must not be at the expense of providing adequate aid to those still living in Kenya.
It's a very congested, the hygiene is a concern. The nutrition of the population in the camp is a major concern. The insecurity is another concern.
MSF recently conducted a survey among its patients in Dagahali. The results showed that in spite of the poor living conditions and endemic violence, 75% of these refugees do not want to return to Somalia. These people still depend on humanitarian aid for their survival. Wissam is a psychologist working for the MSF program based in Nablus. She assists patients suffering from acute stress, anxiety and depression. Today she begins with a visit to a patient in the neighbouring village Salem. Taha is a widow and lives with her 9 children. Not long ago, the Israeli army stormed into her house in the middle of the night. The soldiers beat her up, ransacked her home and arrested her son. She hasn't been able to sleep since. But arrests by the army are not the sole cause of trauma. The proximity of Israeli settlers is also a factor of violence.
Like every village in Palestine, Salem had a lot of suffering. First of all, there is a lone Moree settlement beside them, and the settlers used to come down and to harass the people. Also, the soldiers of the Israeli army, they used to enter the houses and to arrest the people.
Wissam sets off again to Jalud, a village surrounded by 4 colonies. The psychologist is checking up on one of her former patients, Fawaz, an exchange that helps her cope with the ongoing violence, incursions by settlers and general climate of fear.
We keep our doors locked the whole time because we're frightened. They can come at any time without our knowing it.
The 10 olive trees recently torched by settlers hoping to intimidate the Palestinians into leaving are a sign of these assaults. Anxiety and depression. This is the price Fawaz pays to live on her land.